so today we are going to be checking out this beautiful Pacific Seacraft 37 from 1988. 88. Yeah, correct? And this is the owner, Carlin. We're actually looking at mostly boats made after the 90s, but this boat is a huge exception because of all the work that Carlin's had done to it, and he actually took it to the Pacific Seacraft yard to be completely refitted. So how much work did you have the yard do to the boat?
Probably twice as much as it takes to build one from new.
Okay, got it. We're excited to check it out, so let's jump in there.
Before jumping in, let's hear some advice from professional sailor and author John Kretschmer.
Hi, John Kretschmer here. The first boat that they're looking at is a Pacific Seacraft 37. And I confess it's one of my favorites. A beautiful little boat. Kind of a legend, really, a modern boat. It's sort of a boat that's designed to be out on the sea. I also like that it's a cutter without a bowsprit. Bowsprits are, to me, they're almost more of an aesthetic and kind of silly because it literally ties the forestay into a fitting off the bobstay that connects literally at the waterline, and that just makes no sense. The chain plates are mounted outboard. That's great because you can actually inspect them. You know, cruising, you don't really sail hard to weather for long. Things I don't like about it is the cockpit is really small. And I am not, despite the aesthetic and the beauty of a canoe stern, I don't find them to be very functional. But it does translate into a lot of lost space in the cockpit in an already small boat. The thing about the Pacific Seacraft 37 is that it's a really small 37. Your first time going aboard it is usually, so you're surprised that it's a 37. What I think they're gonna find is that they're talking about having a family. That's super cool. I have my daughter aboard right now. She's 28 now, but she spent a lot of her formative years aboard Quetzal. But that's a really small boat, ultimately, to raise a family on.
This boat was ridiculously nice. It felt like a swanky apartment compared to Atticus. It had some super luxurious amenities like a surround sound stereo system, a flat screen TV, air conditioning, heating, and even hot water. But it didn't have a lot of the cruising equipment that we'd like to have for full-time long-distance sailing, like solar panels, a strong bimini for shade in the cockpit, or a high-output water maker.
Although the boat did strike me as being in mint condition, it did surprise me how small it felt. Everything from the galley to the V-berth was just a bit more cramped than I imagined. That said, I loved the layout and simplicity. For a couple planning to cross oceans, it'd be perfect.
Alright, so I'm in the galley right now, and I do like how kind of snug it is. If the boat's moving around, like I feel really cozy and like protected in here. But the floor is contoured with the hole. The only place I can stand straight in the galley is right here. If I'm actually cooking or something, I'm on this like weird incline. I feel like it might get annoying after a while. I'm just looking at the storage spaces where we could like keep our food, and it doesn't seem like it's substantially bigger than the storage space we had on Atticus. And Atticus is a 30-foot boat. This is a 37-foot boat, so I was kind of excited to get more opportunity to store a bunch of provisions. Like, ideally, I'd like a boat where we can go off-grid for like 6 months at a time.
The one thing that I've been real curious about all the boats on this list is headroom. So I'm 6'4", so I'm pretty tall. Right in the center line, I can stand up straight. The moment that I go off to the side, it's, you know, a little shorter. But if you look here, if I'm doing the dishes, you gotta bend over a little bit to do that anyway, and I've got plenty of headroom to do it. Same with cooking, you know what I mean? That slight amount of bending I'd have to do would be fine. So one of our big priorities for Atticus II is gonna be having like a solid place to do computer work. And this nav station would make a decent little computer station. It's a little tight, right? Like, there's not a lot of room for my feet. There's not a lot of room for my butt, but it works. We would need some sort of a backrest. Like, we'd have to build something. It gets the job done, but it's not going to be like terribly comfortable. This is the quarter berth, and this is where the kids would sleep. This would be one of the biggest compromises for us. Out of the boats on our list, I think this boat has the smallest second berth. It would definitely be fine for one kid, for sure. And you could put a little curtain here, and that could be their little domain. The problem would be if we had two kids. And if that were the case, you know, you might have to have one sleeping out on the settee. I actually really like this as just like a sea berth for one person. You know, like it would be perfect, you know what I mean? To just like nestle up right here. If you and I were to sleep here, I don't think we'd be very comfortable.
But for kids, they're teeny. You know, I feel like two kids can definitely fit in there.
Maybe. I don't know much about how much space two kids need, but it's definitely on the tighter side.
You know, it's funny. I feel like it's the perfect size for me.
Yeah. This is boat number 1 for us, and I really think that we're going to realize that a lot. That, like, things that are just right for you are going to be just a little small for me.
Yeah.
And I do like how the L settee is kind of facing toward the galley, toward the other settee, toward the nav stations. But to achieve it, they had to do a center table here. It's just a little bit less than ideal for like entertaining, or like if we had two kids, I think this table would be too small.
Yeah.
You know, the storage space on the Pacific Seacraft 37 isn't amazing. Again, this boat was designed to sail really well offshore. And so I think they compromised on the interior volume in order to achieve that. The owner, Carlin, installed an air conditioning unit, which is right below me, which, trust me, like, I would love to have that. But the point is that once you install a compressor like that and the air ducting and everything, that's going to take up a substantial amount of the storage space that you do have.
As far as the aesthetics of the interior, it is gorgeous. I mean, the wood is a little bit dark, which I don't love, but everything is in perfect condition. It's insane how nice it is. It's like a brand new boat. Yeah, and the shower is pretty spacious. Like, this is super comfortable. There's a lot of room. They've got hot water, which is awesome. But I don't know if I really love the idea of getting our primary head totally wet every time we shower, and also like getting the toilet all wet.
Yeah, because you're kind of showing you're sitting on the toilet.
Yeah, which this is a really common design for boats like this.
Yeah, I think they call it a wet head.
Yeah, a wet head. And I get it, like you know, why waste space when you can do two things in one room?
Or two things at once.
Yes, that would be interesting. I kind of find it annoying to have everything a little bit moist and wet all the time.
Alright, so we're laying in the V-berth, and it's big enough for the two of us, but just barely, I'd say.
Yeah.
You know? So for me, the length is actually okay. Like, I'm okay, but you can kind of see with my feet, it's just big enough for us to be comfortable. I would say the real problem is up here with the shoulders. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little tight. And you should see that it's got this sort of seat area here, so that's kind of what's taking up a lot of the space in here.
I mean, it's really comfortable though. It's cozy.
Yeah.
It's just, I think, you know, long term for 10 years, we might get sick of each other being this close. I'm gonna give this boat a 2 out of 5 stars for livability. For a family of 4, it just feels small. That being said, if I were rating this boat for just 2 people, I'd give it a 4 out of 5.
I think one of my favorite features about this Pacific Seacraft 37 is the fact that it's got a tiller. And not only does it have a tiller, it's got a stinking beautiful tiller. And this is something that Carlin had specifically made. It's a long tiller, so you got plenty of leverage to steer the boat without much actual force. But I can sit here and actually look around the Dodger, where I can steer it from the protection of the Dodger with good visibility. Then the other nice thing about it is that when you aren't sailing, it more or less just gets up out of the way. When he connects the autopilot, he uses a tiller pilot, but he connects it to the tiller when it's back and out of the way, connects to this post here. So the tiller's backwards when the autopilot is driving it. And then also the winches are well placed so that if I were actually sailing, I would be able to single hand and tack the boat, you know, just me, and wouldn't have to wake Desiree up. So this panel here in the cockpit sole can actually lift up and off, and then you can remove the entire engine if you want to. You can access different parts that are harder to get to from the inside. This cockpit is a perfect example of what this boat was designed to do, and that's sail, and sail long distance, and sail in blue water. It makes me want to go do that right now. This boat is a tried and true blue water sailor, so I'm giving it 5 out of 5 for sailability. So first of all, the hull shape on the Pacific Seacraft 37 is nearly exactly what we're looking for. A conservative fin keel that is well attached to the hull and a strong skeg protecting the rudder and prop. This means that the boat could probably take a catastrophic grounding relatively unharmed, yet still perform reasonably well under sail. One thing to note is that this is a heavy boat with long overhangs, a short water line that'll lengthen as the boat heels, and a respectable sail area to displacement ratio. What that all means is that it should be relatively comfortable offshore, yet have decent performance in light winds, a rare combination. That said, the long overhangs and short waterline length does limit its potential top speed. That's why I'm giving it 4 out of 5 for design. This is the fuel tank, and it's a nearly brand new tank. He had it redone with the rest of the refit, and that's one of those things that you got to really look for with boats like this. You know, whenever you have metal tanks in the bilge area, after 20, 30 years, you know, you could expect some serious corrosion going on. So brand new tanks, that's like the major plus of this boat, is it's in such good condition.
Even though it's a 1988 Krelock, this is essentially a brand new boat. That's why I'm going to give this boat a 5 out of 5 for overall condition. Now let's hear from our broker, Bernie Jakits.
It's a good sailing boat, great construction. There are certain issues where the refrigeration is very close to the engine. That is one issue on it. It's not the fastest of underbodies, but it is a great constructed boat. You can get them from $75,000 up to $165,000, depending on the equipment it has. But I think that if you look at one at $165,000, $170,000, then the sky's open for other boats, i.e. that can carry more fuel, better windward performance, just a more powerful sailor. Overall, you can't knock a Krelock 37.
All right, so now we just want to do a quick breakdown of what we thought of the boat today, particularly in regards to our 3 main priorities for what we want Atticus II to accomplish for us.
So our first priority was we wanted a boat that would be big enough for a family of 4 for the next 10 years. And for me, this boat really doesn't check that box.
Almost every single aspect of the boat was just a little bit too small, and it's not the fault of the boat. I mean, I just don't think it was really designed for a family of 4. The second priority that we had was that we wanted to have a boat in good enough condition that we could spend more time sailing and less time working on the boat. And this boat is in excellent condition, so it kind of ticks that box for that reason. At the same time, the boat was outfitted to do relatively brief trips, short voyages, and just not outfitted for long-term live aboard or for really long voyages. If we were to buy this boat, there would be a lot of work that we would have to do to get it ready to go, you know, on a long distance trip. So I'd say it kind of ticks that box.
And our last priority that we'd like in Atticus II is for it to optimize comfort at sea versus comfort at anchor, and this boat definitely does that. I would feel super comfy and safe on that boat while doing offshore passages.
So guys, hope you enjoyed this boat review, our very first blue water boat review of our epic East Coast road trip boat tour, and hope you guys can join us next week. We're going to be checking out a Tiana Vancouver 42. Hope to see you then.